best place for below average Star Wars.
Hello there, and welcome to the Star Wars Show, the best place for below average Star Wars. I am the Geordie Jedi Pete.
And I am Kat Rizialka.
And we are back with a brand new episode of Star Wars. The primary reason will be to review episode 14 of season 3 of Star Wars The Bad Batch. That was Flash Strike, which aired on April 24th, 2024. We'll be deep dive reviewing that episode. Obviously, Kat is here, as you just said. This is our first chance to talk about Bad Batch with Kat. So it'll be interesting to speak about sort of the whole season so far. So basically, if you have not watched episode 14, Flash Strike, and if you have not watched any of the previous 13 episodes of Star Wars The Bad Batch, I recommend you pause the podcast now, go watch it where it is streaming live on Disney Plus, and then come back. Otherwise, you're going to have it spoiled for you. If you don't care about spoilers, then stay tuned. That's absolutely spot on. But Kat, it's been a while since we've recorded. How are you? And then just tell us about how much you are enjoying Star Wars The Bad Batch Season 3.
I'm doing very well, thank you. I've just been inundated with university work, life as a student, but I managed to submit my dissertation this week and had Bad Batch on Wednesday, so it's been a good week. And I think Season 3 has just been so incredible so far. I think the last time I spoke about the Space Gators, I think that was the last time I managed to come on here. And so much has happened since then. But I think the one thing that has really struck me about season 3 is just how much Omega has grown as a character. She has come so much into herself. She's so strong, she's like at an equal level to her brothers now. She's learned so much from them. And in these latest episodes, where she has been put into the vault with the other children, the 4 sensitive children that the Empire have captured, you can really see Omega taking on this big sister role. She's suddenly the oldest, the most experienced, and she's putting all the lessons her brothers have taught her into use. And that sort of level of responsibility she's been taking on has been so amazing to watch. Omega reminds me a lot of Ahsoka in the sense that we've managed to see her journey and her growth as a character in a very similar way throughout these seasons.
That's one of the things I love about Omega, especially this season, is that everything from the initial original escape of Tantus and being there and sort of helping Crosshair brother A, escape, and then B, like through his mental and physical woes, and then sort of helping the whole team get back together, and then obviously, being sort of an integral part of the team rather than just a young apprentice, shall we say. I think, she certainly is now like a fully functional part of the team, which is absolutely fantastic. And what I loved was that when she got, now she's been, I wouldn't say captured because she did hand herself in, but, she's been sort of reacquainted with Hemlock and Tantus, and she's back there. But I think she's oozing confidence, when she's been put in that vault. She doesn't look scared. She's already formulating a plan. She's trying to breed confidence in those little ones around her, in Eva, Jax, Sammy, and Ben, trying to sort of breed a confidence that I know what I'm doing and we'll have hope and we'll get out, don't worry. We just need to stay focused and stay calm. I think all of that's just so awesome, and again just shows just how much she's grown as a character. I think one thing about the whole season is that obviously they've announced season 3 is the final season of the Bad Batch, and that as each episode's gone on, it has felt like there is a finite end coming to this sort of, maybe not all the characters, but certainly this arc of this team of sort of brothers and sisters being together. I don't know what your thoughts are on the fact it is the third and final season and sort of where it is heading in its finale.
It's interesting because although I would totally agree that Omega's story and the Bad Batch Batch's story does seem to be coming to a finale. I'm quite nervous to what that could entail on Tantus. There are a lot of loose ends that haven't been really included much in this season, particularly Rex and his work in trying to free clones from Imperial service. And there's quite a few side missions and side characters. If you look at Asajj Ventress, if you look at Fennec Shand, they've appeared very briefly, and yet there still seems to be so much storytelling there. So I would love for there to be a spin-off after the Bad Batch, not necessarily following these characters we've come to go and love, but more with the clones, explaining how Rex goes from trying to free clones from Imperial rule to hiding out with Wolf. I mean, we've had Commander Wolf turn up, and that's left sort of unresolved. So I really do hope there is more from Star Wars animation to come, because I think it's some of the peak storytelling we have in Star Wars right now. I love the live action series, but there's something about these Star Wars animated shows that just hits differently for me.
Definitely. I think, I listen a lot to the Sky Talkers podcast, and they always say, look to Lucasfilm Animation for the future of Star Wars. And I think if you look at, the big storyline at the minute, sort of Ahsoka and the Throne, they were first introduced in Star Wars through animation, through the Clone Wars and through Rebels. So I think they're very much right when they say that. For me, I think we'll definitely get a Asajj Ventress story told in animation coming forward. And I think what you said there about Rex and where does he go next, and the things that have been left unsaid between him and other clones, as someone who sort of looks at the Lucasfilm jobs that are going and sort of dreams about working there one day, like they are, the animation department's certainly not shutting down. So, they will be making Star Wars animation, and it's not going to be called the Bad Batch, but I think it's very much going to have, certainly a feel and a continuation of some of these other characters we've met along the way, and sort of what they do next, because what they do next does have a fingerprint on the Star Wars galaxy we know and love, I suppose. Diving into today's sort of episode we're reviewing, Flash Strike, which again was episode 14, released on April 24th. I'll give a quick rundown, then we'll dive into our thoughts. So, obviously, Omega is back on Tantus, as we know, and Project Necromancer is in sort of full swing, with not just Omega, but also the other test subjects, Ava, Jax, Sammy, and Ben. And essentially, last time we saw, the Bad Batch had managed to find a way to get to Tantus. So basically, the episode begins. Hemlock's alerted that the Bad Batch have infiltrated the relay station above Coruscant and are possibly on the science vessel that is approaching Tantus. He sends fighters to intercept the incoming vessel. Hunter, Wrecker, Crosshair, and Rampart are forced to crash near Tantus base and continue on foot. They try to make it look like they've been shot down, and they sort of bungee jump / Indiana Jones swing on a rope out the bottom of the hull of the ship before it shoots, which was really cool. And obviously hunted by Stormtrooper patrols on the ground there. The base is on high alert. Omega's taking advantage of the distraction to obviously scout her planned escape route, which is obviously through the holes in the wall. And she ends up climbing quite high, and she finds a underground enclosure, which I suppose is above her, but it's still below ground level. And we see the Zero Beast. He is in there, or one Zero Beast is in there. So that was a really, really cool moment. In the jungle, Rampart accidentally awakens a large creature that attacks them. He's separated from the others and gets captured. Meanwhile, Echo infiltrates the base and encounters Emiri, so that is Dr. Carr, who tells him about the other children being held with Omega. And that's pretty much where we end the episode. So I suppose there's 3 different journeys to talk about here. So let's start with the Bad Batch themselves and Rampart. So by that I mean Hunter, Wrecker, Crosshair, and Rampart. Just talk us through your thoughts sort of on where they start during this adventure in the episode and sort of where they end.
I love the juxtaposition of Rampart and the Bad Batch, because we have the Bad Batch, who are trained soldiers They know exactly what they're doing, and they're calm in the stressful situation of trying to outrun the patrol and evacuate the ship before it crash lands. And Rampart is completely and utterly panicking in every way. I would just like to take this moment to commend Nashir Dalal's performance for Rampart in this section, because he put his heart and soul into Rampart's screaming, and I don't think I've laughed so hard at Star Wars animation in a very long time. And I would like to formally announce a petition to replace the Wilhelm scream with the Rampart scream.
I will sign that petition for you 100% because, again, I thought it was a fantastic performance, but it was so like out of the blue by surprise. He didn't think he had that in him. Obviously, it matches the character spot on, but you know, we just haven't had that type of moment before, especially from an Imperial high up. So no, it was a fantastic bit of storytelling. It was funny, and again, just a great performance. So we definitely need to get that scream certainly used more. Definitely in Star Wars, but maybe everywhere.
Absolutely, it was just it was so hilarious, and I loved when Hunter reconvenes with Crosshair and Wrecker on the ground. Hunter's like, yeah, Rampart survived, unfortunately. We've now got to deal with him in this jungle, and he's probably going to scream loud enough to alert every wild creature within a 5-mile radius. And it's just, they have no respect for him. Understandably, he is an Imperial. And I think it just shows like the difference between the officers' ranks and the soldiers' ranks. But I'm actually sort of also surprised that they'd sort of take him with them, because I was expecting Hunter to actually ditch Rampart at the first chance possible. I don't know if you had a similar feeling.
I think the main thing I took away was, I suppose, the bit that really caught my mind was when, you know, when they're hanging from the obviously Crosshair and Wrecker depart first out of the shuttle, and then I believe it is Rampart and Hunter, and then Rampart gets sort of stuck. And what you were saying there, Kat, I thought was really cool about, obviously, you know, they're sort of stuck with him in the jungle, and that's a problem. But also, there's a moment where, you know, Hunter does shoot the grappling hook that sort of stopped working to allow Rampart to escape the crash. So it's a bit like, although they're sort of annoyed that they've got him down there, it's like, we're still not going to, you know, I'm not going to leave him there to crash and burn in this wreck of a crash. That's what happened. So I don't know if you picked up on that and what you thought about it, but I thought it was just the Bad Batch being good guys and not necessarily giving Rampart a second chance, but, you know, they definitely might need him later when they get into Tantus space. But also, I did think it was a bit like, well, you know, so far you've got with this far, you know, and we have got a deal, so you stick the deal and we'll stick the deal. But maybe they could have just let him die there in the crash and it wouldn't have been a problem. But obviously the Bad Batch are good guys and they're not going to do that. I don't know if you thought that or not.
Yeah, there's this honor to the Bad Batch that we have seen time and time again, where, you know, they are making deals or doing things that perhaps aren't to their best interests, but it's the honorable thing to do. And I mean, I was surprised that Rampart actually survived that fall, considering he is not particularly agile. But then the honorable thing to do is obviously to take them with him. So yeah, that does make sense as to their reasoning of keeping Ramparts as part of their team in a way.
Definitely. And what else was your question again? Sorry, just before when you asked for my thoughts on what was happening.
Yeah, the question basically was, do you think the Bad Batch should have just ditched Rampart in the jungle?
Yeah. So yeah, I think yes. I think no. Like again, I think I've covered that. I thought maybe I missed something out. So yeah, I think, you know, they might need him later at Tantus. You know, he's in his Imperial uniform and he knows his way around Imperial systems. And certainly for that first initial interaction, you know, as we learned in the last episode, he got them in the base and got them out of the base. Now, as soon as they've left, obviously messages come to Tantus and Hemlock that Bad Batch and Rampart had infiltrated the relay station. So I think, long term it won't help them, but short term to get through the initial first stages of doors or Imperial places, I think, yeah, it's important to keep them alive and keep them with them, I think. So obviously I think it ended with sort of Rampart being sort of about to be captured. He was on the ground, wasn't he? And the
Yeah.
troopers were closing in, so it'll be interesting to see how he tries to get out of that. But obviously the troopers know who he is now. Obviously he's been rumbled. So it'll be interesting to see if the Bad Batch come for him to actually get him out as well as everyone else now. Will
I
be
think
very
Rampart
interesting.
will probably try talking his way out of it. But I suspect the Bad Batch will come for him because although none of them particularly like Rampart, I don't think, especially Crosshair, would allow anyone to suffer what Mount Tantis offers. Although Crosshair hasn't gone into the details, we can basically interpret that whatever he went through was very harrowing.
Yeah, and there was another shot in this episode where you see him sort of remove his hand from his blaster in sort of those shakes in his hand, and you see his face as well. So it's not just the physical issue it causes with these sort of the nerves in his hand and arm, but you also see that grimace on his mind where it's obviously affecting him both physically and mentally. So I absolutely agree with you there, 100%. Um, do you think that while Rampart's going to try and talk his way out of it, do you think he's going to try and maybe throw them all under the bus, or maybe pretend he's on some sort of secret mission?
He's going to lie his face off, that's for sure. I'm not sure he's really got anything to sell out on the Bad Batch because Hemlock and the Clone Trooper commandos already know they're there. But I think Rampart might, play like the secret mission card saying he was deep undercover and led the Bad Batch to Tantis deliberately. If that's going to work is another matter, though, because it's not just sort of out talking stormtroopers. He's going to have to probably out talk maybe even Hemlock himself.
Definitely, and that's where I think Rampart would absolutely fall on his sword, because I think Hemlock's just too. Hemlock's not pretending to be evil. I think he is evil incarnate, and I think he is very much. He's a bad guy. Do you know what I mean? Where I think Rampart's done bad things, but he's more like a bumbling buffoon who just wanted to advance in the military or the navy, if that makes sense.
That is like the perfect description of Rampart, a bumbling buffoon who managed to get promoted.
Yeah, and felt important, and then obviously got used as a scapegoat basically by the emperor himself. On the other side, obviously we have, so I said the Bad Batch Hunter wreck across here, and Rampart have ejected out of their shuttle before it crashed. Obviously, Echo was on board the science vessel that departed the relay station above Coruscant. So obviously he's still on board the vessel when it lands on Tantus, and he's able to escape the way he climbed in through the droid depot, which I thought was really cool. What was your thoughts on sort of on Echo, A, finding his way off the science vessel, and then B, finding his way around Tantus and his disguise and his hand, and then obviously also, coming face to face with Dr. Amiri Khan, how them two have a sort of, I wouldn't say a good conversation. I'm still on the fence about what's going to happen next, but they seem to have a slight connection here.
The way Echo gets that disguise reminded me so much of A New Hope, in the way that he takes down the stormtrooper and steals his armor, but the way he then got the hand off the droid was just, it was so perfect. Considering that everything now is coming to the high stakes on Tantis, these little bits of humor, I think, just hit even more now because they're adding a little bit of levity to this very serious storyline. And yeah, Echo is just, he's really funny. I don't think he even realizes it. But what I also loved was the way he was sneaking around on the base, how well trained he is, even compared to the stormtroopers, and I mean, he's an ARC trooper, and it shows the way he manages to get past the super commandos. He's like a shadow through Tantis. Nobody seems to realize he's there. And yeah, just seeing that level of training was great because Echo has been missing almost this whole season and he's had his time to shine now. And I think the conversation he has with Emery Carr is really setting up what could happen in the finale of Emery basically turning on the Empire. She's realized what Hemlock is doing and it's going too far. You can see she cares for these children compared to the other scientists. She treats them like people, not as the specimens they're labeled as. But the shock on Echo's face when he realizes it's not just Omega they have to save, I think it really drives home for Echo the stakes of this mission and the lengths the Empire have gone to for whatever this secret project on Tantis is.
Yeah, and I think for Echo, think about what he went through when he was captured by the Separatists by Wat Tombo, and and it's not the Trade Federation, but it's either side of the Separatists, and he's what would the word be? Like, he was certainly experimented on. He was made to be sort of a robotic type of computer, that took away all of his identity and his humanity, you could say. And he got some of that back when Anakin and in the team rescued him. So he's very much been through this again, similar to Crosshair. I love the fact that Amiri Carr again obviously listens to Omega and listens to everybody she comes into, because she says it's Echo, isn't it? She knows it's Echo through Omega's stories, so she obviously listens to Omega and also like cares enough to actually make note of it all, to be able to sort of make that assumption straight away and be right. My worry is that everything you said about Mirika is right. She does seem to care and she does seem to, worry about what the Empire's doing and is it right, but then she's still doing it, and I feel she's maybe on a bit of a knife edge at the minute where she could go either way in the finale, I think. But that's just me. I think they've wrote it that way where it's, they're showing her decent side, but then she's still also being a part of this bad thing that's happening. And I get it, it's hard to get out of it, but yeah, I'm on the fence. I hope she does come good and she does do good things, but I'm worried that they're going to try and break our hearts and have Amiri Carr do something bad at the very end, but time will tell. And I think what you were saying about Echo sneaking around like no one's there, puts his training to great use. The way he's able to sneak inside a stormtrooper uniform and find a hand, I thought was absolutely fantastic. I think it also goes to show, like this base on Tantus, they're not used to being A, attacked, and B, like infiltrated, because it's so secret that no one's ever done it, really. So I feel that they're at a disadvantage because they're not used to someone being behind enemy lines, because no one knows where the lines actually are, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think Hemlock has this hubris of thinking that Mount Tantus is infallible, that he's created this perfect base for his experiments, especially with the funding, the empty check that the Emperor has promised him. But I think that will be his downfall because he is so confident. It's reached now this level of arrogance where he thinks the clones are beneath him. They're lower life forms, I think, to Hemlock's point of view. And he has underestimated everybody, especially Omega. He doesn't realize that going up against Omega is probably the worst mistake he's ever made.
100%, and let's dive into that. So, we haven't covered Omega yet, so obviously Omega's in the vault still with the other test subjects of Project Necromancer, who are Ava, Jax, Sammy, and Bane. And obviously she's able to sort of take advantage of the base being on high alert here, and she's able to climb right up quite high away from the vault level through the wall. And obviously comes across the Zelu Beast enclosure area, which looks crazy, and they're obviously, I don't know if they're doing experiments on the Zelu Beast or if they're trying to keep it underwater. It's hard to tell, but I mean, my worry would be like, even if Omega doesn't escape, right, and the escape fails, if they're able to get the Zero Beast loose, it could just bring the whole Atlantis down and destroy them all. So, like, absolutely, Hemlock has totally underestimated the whole situation because, you know, the Bar Batch won't have to win for the base to come down. If that makes sense, they'll just have to release that Zero Beast and cause enough chaos. And like, how many beasts are in there, we don't know. But if the Zero Beast gets out and then other things get out, it's going to. It reminded me of there was a great Jurassic Park game when I was younger called Operation Genesis, and you could build your own Jurassic Park. And there'd be times when you'd have like storms would affect like your power to the park. The fences would be cut off, and then like dinosaurs could escape. And then you could also be like a crazy psychopath, and you could delete the fences and then delete the helipad and then just watch the dinosaurs eat everyone. And it sort of that's brought me back to that memory playing that game because I think, you know, that Zero Beast is going to get out and it's going to cause absolute chaos on this base. I don't know what your thoughts were about Omega, how she was conducting herself, and obviously about the Zero Beast reveal.
Omega's plan is so well thought out, and the way she inspires the other children, I just found so beautiful because Omega's gone from being inspired to her brothers to now inspiring them, to giving them the bravery and the courage to stand up against the Empire, even in this little way of just stalling for time so that Omega can explore the base and try to find something that can help them escape. That something being the Zillo Beast. It would be such poetic justice if Hemlock was destroyed by his very experiments. There's this Dr. Frankenstein to these episodes, I feel, in that Hemlock is a doctor and he is going to be destroyed by his own monsters in a way. And yeah, that Zilla Beast is coming out of its cage. And I wanted to go full Godzilla on Mount Tantus, preferably eating Hemlock. Because you're right, even if I actually think the Bad Batch are going to turn up to the vault, I think they're going to get in and they're going to find it empty. Omega's going to have already gotten out of there with the kids to get to the Zilla Beast. And I think they're going to have to sort of find each other in another part of the base as chaos is reigning. Because if the Zilla Beast is down there, we know from the Clone Wars that Palpatine basically wanted to clone the Zilla Beast. So how many are actually on Tantus?
That's my thoughts because, you know, we've seen one little vault here with the Zero Beast in. Like, you know, is there more of those? Quite possibly. And is there more than just the Zero Beast, like other types of creature as well? I've always thought that maybe Mount Tantus isn't just Hemlock either. It's like a bunch of crazy scientists who all have different projects or working on different things. So, like, you know, while Project Necromancer's there and that's what we're following in the main storyline, you know, Zero Beast is probably a different type of project, and who knows how many different projects there is, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah.
and if the Zero Beast gets out and then unleashes all the other crazy contraptions and creatures and scientific experiments gone wrong, like I said, it could be absolute chaos. Before we talk about what we expect in the finale, just is there anything about this episode of Flash Strike that you haven't spoken about that you want to deep dive into?
I think we've basically covered sort of all the major parts of this episode. I suppose the one little tiny thing we sort of didn't mention was from Emery's conversation with Echo. Is Echo deliberately mentions to Emery how she's a clone too? I think Emery is living almost in this. She's almost in her own zone of thinking because she has a full name. She's been raised well, apparently, within the Empire. She doesn't necessarily see herself as a clone, even though she calls herself Omega's sister. There's this detachment, I think, from the other clones. But there was this expression on her face when Echo sort of confronts her that maybe makes Emery reconsider her stance. And that although she seems to be living in a world where she has power, she has influence, is it all a fantasy? So I really hope that she does realize that what she is living in is not necessarily the reality of her life.
Yeah, I think what I think is that I think she expects on paper she should have the better upbringing, the better life, and just the overall better time. But I think she's obviously heard Omega speak about her friends and found family, like not just the Bar Batch, but obviously the people on the different planets she's met and Fee and people like that. You know, I think she's lived a life like full of love and hope, where I think America hasn't, and she should have had the better life, if that makes sense, through
Yeah,
her
yeah.
stance in society through the Empire. So I think then seeing here that the Bad Batch have actually come back to get Omega, again, I think it just shows to her, well, actually, the way the Empire doing things isn't the right way to do it, because it's actually quite lonely. And actually, he has Omega who, you know, A would do anything for our brothers, but our brothers would do anything for her. It's like the perfect circle of family, if that makes sense.
Mm. And yeah, it's this familial ties that Emery just doesn't have. She's got co-workers, she's got colleagues, but there's nobody within the Empire who would do for her what the Bad Batch have done for Omega. And I hope she realizes that. But going into this finale, I can't necessarily say about anybody's going to come out the other end.
Well, that brings up my next question. So I suppose my thoughts on the finale are obviously, you know, the finale is episode 15. It is called The Cavalry Has Arrived, and it will air on May the 1st, which is this coming Wednesday, on Disney Plus. You know, so we're going to have, I think you're right, we're going to have the Bad Batch sort of infiltrate the, infiltrate the bunker, sort of where the test subjects of Project Necromancer are. And I think
Yeah,
we're
the
probably
vault.
going to find nothing there. And I think in the chaos of the Zero Beast being unleashed, I think the Bad Batch will encounter Omega and the other test subjects, and they'll try to escape the chaos. I also imagine that at the time, Echo's probably going to be contacting Rex and the gang to try and get off the world. I think Rex and that will arrive to try and, you know, be the getaway driver, so to speak. We know that nobody has the coordinates of Tantus, but if Echo can find a way to send an off-world transmission, and they can trace that, and then they can escape. So I suppose let's go through the rundown of characters. So we'll start with Hunter. Will Hunter escape Tantus or die on Tantus?
I feel that Hunter actually could be the one in the most danger, because if anybody would make a self-sacrifice for the team, I think it would be Hunter, because he feels responsible for what happened to Tech, what's happened to Omega, and yeah, I could see him taking one for the team.
Crosshair, do you think he's going to escape Tantus, or do you think he's going to meet his end on Tantus?
I think he's going to escape Tantus, because I don't think Crosshair's healing journey is over. And I think if anybody's going to save Rampart, it's actually going to be Crosshair.
Wrecker, do you think he's going to escape Tantus, or do you think he's going to die on Tantus and meet his end?
Oh, I really want Wrecker to survive. But again, I feel he's one that could take a sacrifice for the team.
I suppose that brings us to Omega. Do we think Omega makes it out?
Yes.
And do you think Omega makes it out by using her force powers?
Ooh, her possible latent force powers. I think she's just going to do it on wits and smarts. She's going to use the plans her brothers have made her remember, the skills she's acquired. I think she's going to get out on her intelligence and capability.
Echo, is he going to die on Tantus, or is he going to escape?
Ooh. I think he's going to survive. If he survived this far, he's a former ARC trooper. I think he's going to survive.
I suppose that brings us up to Rampart. Do you think Rampart is going to survive and make it off of Tantus and live a new life as a good man? Do you think he dies here, or do you think he rejoins the Empire? What do you think happens to Rampart?
I actually think he is going to escape with the Bad Batch. I feel Rampart has not necessarily had an epiphany, but he's realized that the Empire doesn't really care about him, and he does care about himself. So he would definitely try to get off Tantus. And again, I think Crosshair would be the one to get him off the planet, because while Rampart doesn't necessarily deserve redemption, I think he does deserve a chance to, one, not be submitted to the horrors of Tantus, but two, to find himself outside of the Empire.
The clone commandos, who I think Scorch is one of them, the clone commandos who have been shown quite a lot in this season, do you think they're going to sort of join to help the clones escape, or do you think they'll like having an awakening where they realize actually we're clones as well? Let's actually help all the clones get off the world, or do you think they'll be loyal to the Empire till the end?
That's really interesting, because I'm assuming these clones still have their inhibitor chips in place, and that could be limiting their free will. So it depends whether, like, a character such as Echo, or if Rex turns up, could sort of explain to these commandos that the Empire is basically controlling them. But considering there's not much time in the story to wrap up so much, I feel that the commandos would be enemies.
Do you think Wolf will be part of the escape?
Yes, I think he would help them. If he's somewhere on Tantus, then he'd look the other way.
And I suppose lastly, I think, do we see Tech return in this episode of the finale?
Who is Clone Trooper X? That's the big question. There's been an absence of the Bad Batch's reaction to Tech's death sort of throughout this series, which I ultimately understand, because they're soldiers. They're used to loss. They're trained to carry on no matter what. And that's how they've managed to get through. It's not that they don't recognize Tex's absence, they do, but they have to carry on. I don't know. I feel Tech is gone, but if he was there, then I mean, they're not going to leave their brother twice.
Definitely. I think for me, I think you brought up a good point about the mourning of Tech, and I think obviously, there has been a time jump. Obviously the first episode was sort of Omega on Tantus, and it depicted time in a very clever way of, some time has passed. So I think there has been some time for the Bad Batch to process Tech's passing and sacrifice, but also, the whole point is they need to get Omega, and they're focused on that as well. I think that focus helps them drive forward as well. And obviously, knowing that Tech sacrificed himself so that they could continue to strive to save Omega, I think is a big thing. What's your thoughts on the Zelo Beast? Do you think the Zelo Beast is going to destroy Tantus? Do you think the Zelo Beast dies at the end, or do you think the Zelo Beast ends up ruling Tantus at the very end, like Jurassic Park at the end?
I want a Jurassic Park moment. Zillo Beast rules the world. Absolutely.
That would be cool. I mean, it's definitely Jurassic Park vibes. I think when we saw the Zelo Beast reveal, it was quite overpowering. I thought it was really cool. Nod. I can see the end being like Tantus being like destroyed, a ruin, a wreck, and like the Zelo Beast just running around like, yeah, like I own this place now. Did you notice? I think they paid more attention to it in this episode with the way they shot it. But obviously, you have like the main peak of Tantus, right? And there's like a secondary peak in the distance.
Yeah, there is. There's basically two bases on whatever planet Tantus is located on. And I don't know if like the second base is just for the air patrols and the fighters, or if it is another laboratory, in which case it would sort of almost be a clone of Tantus. I feel that if it was going to be important, they would have shown it more. They would have shown something coming from it, which makes me think then it's more like a secondary base for the pilots and some of the defenses. But it is interesting that there does seem to be two of them.
Definitely, I think for me, it was something that I've always noticed a little bit. I also maybe Tantus was like that big. It was like maybe it's connected underground. It's all just one big base. But I think this week it just seemed more in focus than normal. I don't know if it actually was off just my eyes, but I just noticed it more than I've ever noticed it, and I feel that was maybe either I've just noticed it more or that was a design choice and how they've animated it and how they've shot it. But time will tell, I suppose. I don't think there's any characters I missed out about who could live or die, I suppose, in the
The
fate.
only one we haven't spoken about is Emery.
Well, I suppose, yeah, let's go there. So, sort of Emery Carr, do you think Dr. Carr is going to, I suppose, A, do the right thing, do the wrong thing, which is B, and then after that, do you think Dr. Carr dies?
I think she will do the right thing. And yeah, I've got a sneaky suspicion that she might die, in the sense that her sacrifice makes up for all that she was willingly participating in. And by sacrificing herself, she's sort of making up for the bad that she has done and unwittingly been a part of. There's a lot of guilt in Emery that is coming forward in these latest episodes. And I think that could make her do something very symbolic.
Well, we all know Star Wars is tragedy. And we've certainly seen tragedy in Star Wars animation when you look at, Vader versus Ahsoka in season 2 of Rebels. When you look at the episode Jedi Knight, where we see the self-sacrifice of Caleb Dume, obviously Kanan Jarrus, to name but a few.
These are kid shows.
Yeah, but the kids need to learn about self-sacrifice as well. They might they're working towards something bigger, maybe in their own lives. I suppose my last question would be, obviously, there's a lot of space in Tantus, and do you think we're going to see almost Indiana Jones-esque of Area 51, where we're going to see maybe the doors to, and maybe like brief glimpses at other experiments that are happening on Tantus once the chaos starts to unfold?
I would think so, because we know that the section of the vault Hemlock took Palpatine to in that very first episode, we've not seen since. The only other sections we've seen are the area where Omega and the children are being held, and now this Zillo Beast pen. So that basically hints at the vault being a very large area of Tantus. And as the Omega or the Zillo Beast is running through it, yeah, I'm hoping that we would see what else has been going on, or even like as an end credit scene of some Imperials going through the ruins of Tantus and looking at what remains of the experiments in the aftermath. Even that would be quite, I think, a powerful shot. But ultimately, I think Tantus has to be destroyed to make sense for some of the other things that happen in the timeline.
Do you think we'll see any early Snokes in a jar?
It is sort of hinted in the first episode that the section of the vault with the Sith runes must be holding something to do with Palpatine or Snoke, but Project Necromancer is very ambiguous. We don't really know what it is. And necromancy itself actually means bringing the dead back, not necessarily extending your own life. But there could be clones there, or certainly the beginnings of ideas on how it's going to be achieved. And yeah, the Zillo Beast needs to go through there and smash those jars of pickles.
What would you do if we see like a frozen or pickled like Nubs, who's obviously going to be dead because he was alive in the High Republic era. Maybe that's who they're trying to bring back.
Oh
Or
my gosh.
am I being silly? But I mean, Necromancer, you tell it yourself.
Yeah, I mean, we know from Mount Inquisitorius that they've got the Jedi in Amber, so what else could be down there?
Nubs Nation, let us know what you think in the comments. Will Nubs make an appearance on Tantus as a reanimated evil Nubs, I suppose you could say. Um, Time will tell. I think that brings an end to sort of what I want to discuss about the Bad Batch. I don't know if there's any closing points that you want to discuss about the Bad Batch, Cat, before we move on to our next topics.
Just that Flashpoint has been my favourite episode so far, and I think I am slowly coming around to liking Rampart. He's done a Callus on me. I went from like hating Callus to really loving Callus's character, and I've gone from hating Rampart, like really despising him, to actually, you know what? He's not as bad as Sid.
Indeed, I think definitely, yeah, agreed with that. I suppose that's one Sid. Do you think we're going to see what's going to happen? Do you reckon Sid is going to reappear?
Do you know what? I'd love end credit scene. You hear the spurs of Cad Bane entering her casino, and you just hear the spurs. You see Sid really briefly, and then there's a blaster shot, fade to black.
That would be epic. That would be really epic. I think moving on from the Bad Batch, obviously, as I've said, the final episode of the Bad Batch, The Cavalry Has Arrived, airs on May the 1st, which is Wednesday. And on Saturday is May the 4th. Obviously, the Star Wars, what should we say, capitalist holiday, should we call it? Star Wars Day. Star Wars Day is obviously, there's usually lots of events, lots of special merchandise. This year is extra special because on May the 3rd, the Phantom Menace re-releases across the nation and the world for its 25th anniversary. So I think it's in the UK. It seems to be on from the 3rd to the 6th in the cinemas I've seen, and I've got my tickets booked for the Odeon. But I've also seen not just Odeon but also Cineworld are showing it. And if you are living local at Newcastle, the Tyneside Cinema, which is the city centre's independent cinema, also has screenings of the Phantom Menace for the 25th anniversary. I believe it is a 4K restoration as well, which is fantastic. So that's going on May the 4th weekend, as well as special events at Lego and other retailers. So let's just start with you, Kat. Obviously, just what's your plans for the May the 4th weekend, and what special purchases maybe you might not have your eyes on to buy, but which ones look really cool?
So, as I'm in uni and I'm still writing essays, I'm not sure if I have anything particularly planned to do on the weekend of Star Wars Day, but I am eyeing up the Lego 25th anniversary prequels brickhead set, which has Anakin, it has Padme, Jar Jar. That looks absolutely amazing, as does the Lego brickheads of Commander Cody. So I think I'm going to more the capitalism side of Star Wars Day, but I'm sure I'm going to get some Star Wars music to revise to, and maybe I should bring out Jedi Survivor again because that is also celebrating its 1 year anniversary.
It certainly is. I think for me, for May the 4th, first of all, Friday night, May the 3rd, I am seeing The Phantom Menace at my local Odeon, as I said, in 4K. So I'm very excited to watch the 25th anniversary of The Phantom Menace. And on Saturday itself, obviously, we have all episodes of Tales of the Empire, the follow-up series to Tales of the Jedi. So I'll probably watch those on the Saturday morning. And then in Newcastle, there's a couple of events, actually. So the Slice Wars happening at the Wylam Brewery. So it's essentially just a big pizza and Star Wars festival happening up there. So I'll be going there to enjoy lots of pizza and hopefully see some awesome Star Wars characters and some Star Wars things going on, which would be cool. And then on the Sunday, don't know what I've got planned yet, but I'm hoping to catch the Phantom Menace one more time in cinemas, either on the Sunday or the Monday. Fingers crossed. Merch-wise, I haven't really got my eyes on anything in particular. I'm sort of waiting to see what deals come up. As I've said before, I've got a holiday to New York coming up on May 25th, so I'm sort of saving my pennies for that. But if some good sales come up and some good items are there, I'll probably jump on something, at least one thing maybe, just so that I don't feel like I'm missing out completely. What What have you been reading, Kat? I know you obviously love the comics and you love the novels.
Yeah, currently I'm really enjoying the Django Fett miniseries, which is written by the amazing. Uh, let me just double check that. Yes, so it's written by the amazing Ethan Sachs, who does the Bounty Hunters one, and it is illustrated by the incredible Luke Ross, who is one of my favorite artists for the Marvel comics. And it's set literally just before the events of the Phantom Menace. There's mention of the Trade Federation um, already starting to cause trouble around Naboo, but it's following Django, and yeah, it's really been amazing. I'm actually sad it's only 4 issues because it's been so refreshing to see the prequels focused on in the comics compared to the massive amount of the original trilogy stories we've been getting. And if you love the prequels, if you love Django Fett, you just have to get these comics basically.
You do indeed. I do not pick it up. I'll probably pick the one until he says a one-off trade paperback. But I've heard great things. Obviously, Jango Fett. He's one of those characters who I loved in the prequels, and especially remember it was the first figure I got for Attack of the Clones was Jango Fett. I remember like really, really loving that figure a lot. I suppose reading wise, I'm not really reading anything particular in it. I did pick up The Living Force, which is the new novel by John Jackson Miller, which follows the Jedi Council sort of in the events of Qui-Gon's death, I think, possibly. Or maybe that's another one that is linked to it. Either way, the front artwork's fantastic. You know, it's a lot of the Jedi Council members from the prequel era, who obviously all debuted in the Phantom Menace. So again, the Phantom Menace love and the prequel love is strong. Star Wars figures wise, I bought these a while ago, but I just collected them from my comics dealer. If you go over to the Star Wars TikTok, you'll see me unboxing the not the actual figures themselves, but reviewing the figures out of the box I collected them in. Just to show how long ago I ordered these without picking them up. They're still in the windowless packaging from Hasbro, which they've reversed on, which is fantastic. But I did get the all Black Series 6-inch figures. I did get the Ahsoka Tano Padawan version from as depicted in Clone Wars. I did get the fourth sister as depicted in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, and I also did get the gaming greats Darth Malgus as depicted in Star Wars: The Old Republic. So very excited to get those figures in my hands, and I did get some comics as well, which was very exciting times.
Yeah, speaking of the gaming greats, I just picked up the Star Wars Black Series Cal Kestis figure, which I have been eyeing up for quite a while, and I finally got it for my birthday. And I love that figure. The modern facial sculpts that Hasbro are doing, they just keep getting better, and the likenesses keep getting so much more detailed. So that's become definitely one of my favorite figures. And to go with it, I managed to get my hands on the Funko Pop Cal Kestis from Jedi Fallen Order, which are really difficult to come by now. And I really wish Funko would do matching one for Jedi Survivor.
Maybe they will. I know the Funko have released quite a lot of good Phantom Menace pops just recently. So maybe once they've got off the Phantom Menace bandwagon, they'll go back to doing some awesome, more modern characters. Maybe.
Well, they have just announced that they are reissuing a new Zeb Oralius figure.
Ooh, that sounds very, very cool. Obviously, Zeb very chaotic. Looks absolutely awesome. Is there anything else sort of product wise that you've got your eyes on, or that you waiting to see maybe other people unbox, or you waiting to see if you can get later on down the line?
I'm definitely eyeing up some of those prequel Funko Pops as well. I need more Padmes in my collection.
I have. I'm not going right now, so I'm probably going to do something with TikTok for them. I've got So these are Star Wars Episode 1, the 1999 Portrait Edition. So it's Queen Amidala in the black travel gown, and it's Queen Amidala in the red Senate gown, and they're not Barbie dolls, but they're sort of, I don't know, they're a bit like, they're not Barbie dolls and they're not porcelain dolls, they're a bit like in the middle. So they're in the Phantom Menace packaging, and it's clearly say like for adult collectors on them. I'm trying to think what size they're on scale. just having a little look now. They're quite tall. You know, the far bigger than what a Black Series is. So I'm probably going to be sharing those as well
Those
as
sound really exciting.
sharing other Phantom Menace merchandise that I have around me as well. Seeing as we are in Phantom Menace season, it sounds like. Is there anything else you want to cover in today's episode, Kat, before we wrap things up?
I think we've covered basically everything, and just reiterating that the Wilhelm scream needs to be replaced by the Rampart scream, because that was the best part of this week's Bad Batch.
Indeed. And it wouldn't be an episode with me and you on if I didn't leave you with a really hard question for you to answer, Kat. So I'm going to give you two choices. So one of these happens and the other one doesn't, okay? So Omega survives the season finale of the Bad Batch, okay?
Okay.
Or Ben Solo comes back.
Sorry, Omega, you've got to make the greatest sacrifice.
I thought you would go that way, but I just love you. I love making you sound like a monster, Cat, when I give you like two very hard choices.
Oh my gosh. So I'm a monster. Right. There we go. Let me get my Last Jedi t-shirt on.
You are. Well, I am a monster. Yeah, I suppose that is the line, isn't it?
Exactly. Okay, that's very poetic. Very poetic.
Yeah, but I always love that. But you know, I think speaking of Hasbro face molds, I suppose we always come back to this point. I suppose before we wrap things up, like we obviously don't have the Ben Solo figure yet. Like, do you think that's going to come soon?
Well, they've just announced yet another Darth Vader, and please, Hasbro, just anything at this point, bar another Vader.
Yeah, I think I get the repaints and the sort of the re-releases where they make the money back, but like, you're doing so many Vaders and so many troopers that you can give us a first time in the line Ben Solo, or first time in the line Cantina Alien, whatever it is. You can go make
Queen Amidala.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see where that goes. But no, thank you very much for joining us, Kat. Where can the people find you on social media?
You can find me at Kat Kylo on Twitter, where I'm always happy to talk about Star Wars, Lego, and anything Kylo Ren.
And I believe Blocks Magazine, who you do some writing for, well, quite a lot usually when you're not studying, have a special issue out about the 25th anniversary of Star Wars Lego, is that right?
We do. Our latest issue of Blocks Magazine, which is on shelves now, features the 25th anniversary of LEGO Star Wars, including exclusive reviews, interviews, and features, plus an exclusive first look at the new Force of Creativity book by our very own editor, Graham Hancock.
That sounds really exciting. Definitely pick that up, guys. I've not read it myself yet, but the sort of the images I've seen of the magazine on social media look absolutely wonderful. You can obviously follow myself on social media at Geordie Jedi Pete. That is on Instagram and X, formerly known as Twitter. You can find the podcast on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Boars Star. You can also find the podcast on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, at Star Wars Podcast, but also on TikTok, as I said, where doing lots of cool stuff, hopefully showing lots of cool merchandise. So definitely check that out. And we also are unboxing the Star Wars Unlimited trading card game over on the TikTok as well. So check that out. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, please leave us a top 5-star review. It takes you a few moments, but it keeps us smiling all day. And it also helps people find the show. And if you are listening on one of the other many wonderful podcast platforms, podcast apps, again, if it has a feature to leave a review, just leave us a top review. Nice little sentence. Again, keeps us smiling all day, takes you a few moments, and it helps people find the show. Thank you very much for listening. May the Force be with you all. And remember, always tell that to Kanja Club.
The Dorky Diva Show presents...
Why is this seat so much more comfortable?
The long-awaited sequel to the adventures of the Zolan Dart audio drama.
Have you seen the captain's datapad?
Trying to work, Murph.
Piloting the Zolan Dart by himself.
You do understand the details of this particular job, correct?
I've been on plenty of jobs like this. With you!
Reldar Sias returns to a planet he thought he'd left behind for good.
Is there a reason you didn't mention I was tagging along?
Hopefully having you there will make others think twice about messing with me.
Making new friends,
Oh, you must be the pilot of the Zolan Dart, yes?
I guess I am.
and reconnecting with old ones.
Reldar?
Vera?
What are you doing here?
Until past grudges resurface,
I'd be minding my own business if I were you.
Well, if your business wasn't being handled right in front of my face, maybe I could mind my own business. We have to leave. Now.
Why the rush all of a sudden?
We're in trouble.
If it isn't little Reldar Scythe.
Hey, Yorick. Long time no see.
Roz already knows you're here.
Oh,
Look who decided to come home.
Reldar must confront his origin,
I must admit, I never saw this as being a part of your past, Softshell.
or let it define his future.
I will get what is owed to me, no matter the cost.
because what Roz is trying to do is wrong.
Says you. My blasters. We're going to need these. Take that, Sleemo.
The Adventures of the Zolan Dart, Episode 2, coming soon.